What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost. As we look across the gaming industry, we see so many of these companies, so many developers that are focused on identity politics. We see wokeness being injected into so many different games. But we always said, well, at least Japan isn't that way. At least the Japanese companies, the Japanese developers aren't focused on that nonsense. But now, with this recent Capcom leak, that may be changed, and that is unfortunate for everyone, and especially the consumer. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about right here. If you didn't see it yesterday, Capcom had an enormous leak, an immense leak. Details about games, details about financial details with Sony and Google to put their games on their platforms, a monetary value, contracts, things like that. It was insane. But one thing that was maybe more disturbing than anything else was the fact that they talked about political correctness and identity politics in their games. This is Capcom, ladies and gentlemen. This is not someone we thought would bend to this kind of nonsense, but we're seeing it right now. And before we get into all of this, I did want to take a look at someone who I really respect and someone I follow on Twitter, and their response to this. Now, this is Mark Kern of World of Warcraft fame. Look at what he says. The Capcom leak just shows that US influence has come to Japan. Japanese devs are being told that in order to succeed in the West, they must change the way they make games. I don't think it's going to work the way they have been told it will. Japanese manga and anime took the West by storm because they were different and inherently Japanese. By watering it down and changing it to be Western friendly for a larger imagined group of Tumblr buyers, you end up just like every other show or comic here in the United States. Companies turning their back on traditional gamers who want gameplay without the activism are just leaving money on the table and at least half of the market. Both said if Big Pub doesn't want their money, we will be happy to serve the need. So there you go from Mark Kern, Taiwanese American Mark Kern. So he does have a little understanding of what goes on in the West and what goes on in the East. But let's get to this. The politically correct stuff is at the end, so I want to cover these big leaks first about games. And like I said, this is pretty huge, to be honest. Capcom claimed they have verified 18 pieces of employee personal information was obtained, along with the potential of approximately 14,000 items of human resource information and 350,000 items of customer and business or partner personal information. So there's a chance that your information could be compromised in that as well, just so you know. But here is the information on the game. Now, of course, this was taken not necessarily yesterday. It was taken, could be weeks, could have been months, could have been a year ago where some of this information was gathered. But this is what was leaked online. Resident Evil Village is set to launch April 2021 on PS4 and PS5 with a demo coming before the release. Expect pre-orders in January of 21. There's also going to be, which this was crazy to a lot of people, very unexpected, a multiplayer Battle Royale Resident Evil game in development. Now, I know Battle Royale is a big craze right now, and I get it for some games. Resident Evil makes absolutely zero sense to have a Battle Royale, but I guess we'll see how it goes. There's a collection of Ace Attorney games for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4, so for those of you that are fans of the Ace Attorney game, I've seen Nick Rekieta play it on Twitch before, but that's about as much experience as I have in it. Monster Hunter Rise was meant to launch holiday 2020, but was delayed due to COVID, and Monster Hunter Stories 2 was announced. This is something interesting as well. Monster Hunter Stories 2 was last announced headed to Switch, and it was supposed to be a Switch exclusive, but now there's reports that it's also coming to PC. Who knows when that will happen? It also gets into their marketing strategies. To build a community for one of these new games that leaked, Capcom were planning to hire a popular streamer to play the game, but they did lay out the risks of contract fees being too high, and the streamer will stop playing the game as soon as the contract expires, like Ninja with Apex Legends, and also like we saw with Valorant, to be quite honest with you. Instead, they'll focus on a large number of mid-tier streamers, so that's what they're, like I said, these are business strategies. They talk about Google paying Capcom $10 million to bring Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village to Google Stadia. And then also Sony paid them $5 million for demo exclusivity for Resident Evil 7. So, like I said, very, very highly detailed stuff. Here Here is where it gets interesting. Now, this is all via translation, so some people are hedging their bets, but this is what has come out. Among the documentation includes a presentation on political correctness and advertising materials and how to avoid drama and controversy. This includes avoiding the use of language that can be deemed as discriminatory or prejudice and will result in new guidelines for each region's PR and advertising material creators. So right here, you start worrying about prejudice, start worrying about discriminatory language that can offend people. And we know when it comes to these PC presentations, discriminatory isn't actually. It is the most ridiculous definition you could imagine from people who live on the internet, who can't decide what pronoun to put in their bio, who have no actual human interaction. These are the people who are determining that something is discriminatory or prejudiced. Even so, some of the documentation discusses what to do and what to avoid as though it applied to game designers. This includes gender-neutral cosmetic options, only featuring certain ethnicities or portraying them as unequal or stereotypical. And avoiding sexual or obscene language and jokes, unless inevitable, based on the context of a story or narrative. And this is what we mean. This is what Mark Kern is talking about when he's talking about Western PC culture infesting the East. Japanese games are that for a reason. People like the fact that it's not censored, that it's not PC the way that so many games developed in the West have been. That seems to be going away right here. That's what it looks like Capcom is working towards. Sexuality, LGBTQ, and women were also discussed. One slide features The Last of Us Part 2. You knew we were going to get to it. You knew it, ladies and gentlemen. We would get to The Last of Us Part 2. Now, why you would use The Last of Us Part 2 as something that you want to shoot for in any way, shape, or form other than first weekend sales? Because we know after the first weekend, it dive bombed. It went off a cliff because people realized they were tricked by this game. They didn't realize that it was going to be Ellie and Abby game. They thought it was going to be Ellie and Joel because... crazy enough, if you'd have told them that Joel wasn't going to be really a playable protagonist in this for any portion of the game, then they wouldn't have fucking bought it. Because people don't like Abby. People like Ellie well enough, but they don't like Ellie without Joel. That was very clear in the Metacritic scores. It was very clear in all the reviews that weren't done by the shill mainstream media. So the fact that they're using Last of Us Part 2 as a shining example may be a warning sign. Now, to be fair, when you look at The Last of Us, the DLC for The Last of Us, where Ellie was revealed, her sexuality was revealed in that DLC, that was pretty well received, honestly, and it didn't seem like it was really beaten over your head. However, Last of Us Part 2, that's all it did. Whether it came to gender identity, whether it came to sexuality, whether it came to any of this shit, it was beating you over the head with it. So I don't know if that's the best thing that Capcom wants to do going forward. But they also used Shadow of the Tomb Raider as being positive examples of LGBTQ characters. I need to stop there because that's Lara Croft. Her sexuality. There's nothing there that says in canon that she's a lesbian anyway. This is a shipper thing. Tomb Raider writer tried so hard to make Lara Croft explicitly gay, but a steamy same-sex kiss was quietly scrapped. He tried to write a comic showing that, but it didn't happen. You have all these questions from these weird freaking shippers that wanted Lara to get with Sam, but it didn't happen. It has not happened in the game. It has not happened in canon. They refuse to do it. It is going to stay something that is full of, it's just a thing that shippers do. So continue to ship, but that's not real. Lara Croft isn't gay in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, in this shit. You just want her to be. So it's scary that it was presented that way. But they're provided as examples of LGBTQ characters, and that such characters should be portrayed as appealing as male characters and promoted in the same way. Capcom do note that certain regions view LGBT characters negatively. Yeah, that's why. That's why we don't see people changing their rainbow flags in the Middle East, do we? Because you don't actually care about that. You only care about pandering to make money. This is not going to go the way you think it will, Capcom. Meanwhile, Princess Peach and Zelda were used as examples of negative stereotypes of women due to being damsels in distress. They talk about sex appeal, like bikini costumes or lewd poses or costumes should be equal between men and women and serve a purpose in the context of the story. No more scantily clad women, evidently, for Capcom. It has to be part of the story, guys, so good luck. Again, good luck with that. This is all about a Japanese developer looking to bend the knee to these weirdos in the West. These weirdos that live on Twitter, that live on Reddit, that live on Tumblr, that will not buy your games. They will only complain when someone's not represented as well as they should. And then if you fix that, they'll find something else that is wrong. They even talked about their own games as examples of this. While a shirtless costume for Street Fighter's Ryu was fine, Armika's butt-smashing super move was not. Cases where an armor set in Monster Hunter World shows more skin on the female characters was seen as a bad thing. Likewise, Spider-Man Miles Morales was seen as a positive portrayal of non-white races, while Street Fighter's DJ wearing a Rastafarian hat was not. So it looks like Capcom is going down this road. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out in their games themselves. But this leak, in addition to showing things that they did not want to be shown about their games, about the future of some of their franchises, now we find out that Capcom is going down the woke road. I don't think it's going to work out for you the way you think it will. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.